Okay, welcome everyone.
Uh, oh, yeah.
I think same as last time, this is a super last minute stream. Not prepped anything, but this was the only time me and Oleg could find to get together over the next few days. And we wanted to get this dev stream out on the same day as the patch. So patch is coming out in about 2.5 hours, 3 hours, basically 8 o'clock GMT. Yeah, so let's go through everything. So, Oleg, over to you. What have we got done for the next patch?
So, the big thing is the campaign. I'll talk about it after we quickly get through all of the other changes. As for other stuff, for basic changes, is I removed the relic requirement from a lot of the. Oh, you don't have the map.
Oh, I haven't installed the DAO maps yet.
Okay. Let me. Where's Meeting of Minds? You should have this one.
Yep, got that.
Okay, cool. So, as for some basic things, just to quickly run through some stuff, relic requirements have been removed from a bunch of units and researches and stuff like that. Reason being that relic requirements were basically a crutch to force people to not turtle, but with the most recent victory conditions, which we're hoping will become basically the standard victory condition, that's not nearly as much of a problem because people will be forced to go out of the map anyway, so there's no need for that crutch. Another thing that happened is that I removed the ability to for leaders to get attached to squads with a jump, because the way it works is that if the leader has a jump but the squad doesn't, then when they're attached, the squad won't be able to jump with the leader. But if the squad has a jump and the leader doesn't, then the leader can jump with the squad. And there was no way to kind of fiddle around it to where if both of them have a jump then they can attach, or if only one of them does then they can't. There's no way to like do any nuances there. It's literally just, can it be attached to or not? That is the only options that we have. So unfortunately, due to that, and due to some silly shenanigans where you could have the Narlock Alpha just jump around with Vespids, or hell, even more ridiculously, stealth suits, because a leader also inherits the stealth. So you would have this giant ass beast who could both jump and is also stealthed. So,
Yeah. Well,
needless
it
to
makes
say,
logical sense.
yeah,
Having, yeah, if you imagine there's like a squad of specialized troops with specialized jumping equipment, yeah, it makes sense
yeah,
that they wouldn't have random people joining the squad because they'd have to be using the same kit. Like, yeah, I'm happy with most.
yeah.
Yeah, in most cases for the jump squads not to accept leaders.
There is like one way to work around that. Specifically, the orcs have it, but I'm not going to get into that. But if we really feel like there's a situation where this is getting in the way, there is one way to work around it, although it's a little bit finicky.
Yeah, that's
So
basically a
another thing,
recode of all the squads in a whole race, isn't it? So
yes, yes.
yeah, a bit of a
Orcs
faff.
have it for their infantry so that the mech boy can jump if he's attached to them. But anyway, as the other thing was, there were certain effects that were causing FPS loss, and those were just removed, specifically poison effects.
For the Nurgle units.
Yeah,
So
Nurgle stuff.
in CSM and Demons, but not for Dark Eldar, I believe.
Yeah, because Dark Eldar have already had them removed, I think. So then, onto some Scar stuff. Squad experience again. That was just we named things incorrectly, so we had to rename a folder to fix that.
Yeah, I put something in the wrong folder. So yeah, so only half of the files needed for that were in the last patch. It was a bit annoying, but it's all out now. Yeah, so a bit of a change for relic stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Or Scar stuff. Actually, I'll let you talk about that actually, because that was one of your jobs.
So, yeah. So, relic stuff. Restrict relic restrict Titans and restrict Game Enders have all been properly implemented and all should have AI counterparts. These are not cumulative. So restrict Titans does not restrict relic units, and restrict relic units does not restrict Titans. So if you
Yeah.
want to restrict all of the end game stuff, you will need to have all three enabled. So these are all separate.
Yeah, that was in keeping with a lot of our other win conditions where we wanted them to be modular. So like the starting units and stuff. I
Scalia,
wanted it.
people are saying that the link to the stream doesn't work. Could you try like editing it or posting another one?
Okay, let's have a
Sure, why?
look.
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay, you have it as a thing where if they click it, it doesn't actually show up.
Does it need
Like it's not a
www.
clickable link. It's just something you need to copy paste. So maybe if
Tell
you
them
do
to
that.
copy paste then.
Okay, that's still not clickable. That's weird.
I'm sure people can copy a web page. How do you make it?
Oh, I just used it. That does work. So that should
It
be
is the
fine.
right link, right?
Yeah, it is correct. I just used it. It should be fine. Okay. Anyway, so yeah. So that has been properly implemented because before there were a bunch of stuff missing and all of that. There was also a bug from 2.0.
Actually, just going on to the
where
previous thing, it is worth
Mhm.
noting that we have. I think you said it in about 5 words, but just to reiterate, it has been fully redone in terms of what counts as relic unit, what counts as titans. It should be,
Yes.
and also game enders is really now just real end game. It's nukes. The old system, bought over from UA included a load of like shrines. A lot of late game buildings which we didn't feel needed to get restricted. The reason people use this is to disable nukes, basically. So we've recoded that to mostly just be nukes. Titans
And
to just be
not
obvious.
nuke buildings, specifically nukes, so that you can still build the nuke building if it is required for tech purposes. So, because for
Yeah,
example, the Great Cabal for Dark Eldar, you need to build that to get tier 5.
yeah,
So,
and the Eldar nuke building has a load of really cool researches. Yeah,
Mhm.
so it's a properly thought out system now.
Yeah,
And then relic units, it's obvious, and Titans is pretty obvious.
fairly
So
obvious as well. Okay. So yeah, so going back to what I was saying, there was a bug with where if you were using take and hold and if you were to actually fully annihilate your opponent, it would give an error. That was just a simple thing that we overlooked when we were doing our win condition rework for 2.0, so that's just been fixed. I'm pretty sure no one basically noticed that because I got no reports about it. But yeah, so I guess let's move on to the major thing and let's actually start up the game, which is the victory points win condition. For anyone who's familiar with Dawn of War 2 and how that works, you should be very familiar with it. So I'll
oh
enable
man,
all of them just to show. So, oh, are you having trouble getting into the game?
I haven't unlocked my races.
Oh.
Yeah, anyone that knows me knows that if I've got any reason to, I can't pick Elder. That's just weird.
Wrong
Right,
thing. Patches. Yeah, races for multiplayer. First one.
cool. Right. I mean, I could have chosen another race, but it just feels wrong.
Yeah, it's just must be Eldar. Eldar or bust. So anyway,
Hey.
basically, for those who are not familiar with the system, the way it works is that there is uh, a point total, and whenever you have a critical, it will start counting towards that point total, and when it reaches that point total, you win the game. Caveat is that if you don't have a critical, it won't just stay where it is; it will actually decay as well. So, like for example, if you held the point for 100 points and then the point was taken away from you, it will actually go back and decay down to nothing, basically, if you take
At the
long
same
enough to get
speed,
it back.
or is it a slower?
At the same speed, I believe. I believe it's a speed of 1 per second, but I'm not 100%. There is also um, 6 different point totals. Those are pretty self-explanatory. If you want a longer game, you select a higher point total, and if you want a shorter game, you obviously select a shorter point total. So one thing to keep in mind is that having multiple crits will speed up the rate at which it ticks up. So obviously for larger maps with more crits, or for example, a map like this with 3 crits, you probably don't want to use the smaller points total because it will just be too quick. Okay, so let's start up the game and actually show it off how it works. Let me change the speed to fast just to make things a little bit quicker.
Hello.
Hello.
Do you know how to? Do you have ever had a problem with Dawn of War mods?
Sorry, we're just in the middle of streaming. We're doing a dev stream for the new patch. So,
Oh,
sorry, well, I'll chat to you later.
Yeah,
okay, so when
we'll
do
sort it out later.
in hours maybe?
In an hour.
Okay, okay. Then have a good stream.
Thank you.
Should probably swap to Chamber of Cain. I didn't realize that people could just enter the Chamber of Wall.
People shouldn't.
That's weird. Well, it seems like they can. Like, he didn't have any tags, he just had Crucible Tester, that was it. So,
Oh, should we jump into Kane?
yeah, once the game loads, yeah. So, yeah, so basically, I've tried this win condition out with a few people, and this is specifically good for free-for-alls, because for anyone who has played PvP for any period of time knows that free-for-alls tend to devolve into who can either get an insane amount of resources either through teching up or rushing a person, or who can just sit in their base and tech up the fastest.
Yeah.
Usually the second strategy tends to win. Usually, unless the player is really good.
Yeah.
So obviously that needed to be changed. And we needed something that would help with that, and Take and Hold just didn't work because of the long timer and the fact that it would completely reset. So this is a nice middle ground.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's swap to Chamber of Cain.
Cool.
So yeah, so the idea is, Iscalia, if you want to obviously go capture. Oh, actually, there's only 2 crits in this map. Right, the middle is a relic. So if you see on the right of the screen, there is now Team 1 and Team 2 victory points, 0 out of 1,000. This is where you'll see the victory points for all of the teams in the game. So in a free-for-all, in a 5-person free-for-all, for example, there'll be 5 teams, and each will represent an individual person. If you have multiple players on the same team, then they will all count as one team and will have 1 point total. So if it's, let's say, for example, a 2v2, then you'll have 2 teams with 2 players on each.
Cool.
So yeah, that's the basic idea. It does still have the secondary win condition of fully annihilating your opponent the same way that Take and Hold does. So you're not forced to go after crits if you think you can just kill your opponent, or even just substantially damage your opponent to where you can then take the crits. Then that's still a viable strategy. So you're
Cool.
not
So
into
you don't
this.
also need to have a annihilate selected then as a win condition. You can just use this one.
Yes, you don't need to have Annihilate selected. You can. They won't. Well, actually, they might conflict to where you might need to fully annihilate your opponent, because this has the same annihilation conditions as Take and Hold, which means that everything that your opponent has needs to be gotten rid of. It's not just all of their production buildings. Everything that they have needs to be gotten rid of.
Yeah.
So yeah, for example, I captured this crit, and you see my points are ticking. No, captured, Escalia.
Oh, I just wasted my second jump. Tell you what, is your game lagging?
It seems to be a little bit laggy, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it seems to be rubber banding a little bit. So yeah, so my points are ticking up. Obviously, Iscalia captured his ones, so his points are ticking up. Now, if you look at what happens when mine gets decapped, is that the points should start ticking down. So 45 points, and you see they're ticking down now. Actually, it is a much slower rate of ticking down than it is to tick up. Yeah,
I hugely prefer that, actually. I'm really happy that it's
yeah,
like half
yeah.
speed.
The rate is
Whatever.
much slower, but yeah, as you can see, the points are now ticking down. So if I take too long to get a critical point back, then obviously, it's going to be a problem because I'll be back at 0.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's the basic idea of all of that.
Cool. And it looks like so for the lowest number, that's about what a 5 minute.
I did the maths on this with it's about 1 per second.
And
So
what's
I
the
think
lowest one? Is that 250 for the smallest one?
250. Yeah,
Cool. So just under
250
5
for the
minutes for
smallest one.
one.
So yeah, 4 minutes, a bit over 4 minutes. Well, actually, from the start of the game, it would be about 5 minutes because it takes about a minute to capture a crit. But yeah, the lowest one is 5 minutes, and then it keeps scaling up from there, where second one is 8 minutes, etc., etc.
Cool.
So yeah, so
Nice.
that's all of the basics of that. Shall we go on to individual races?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so one thing to mention about the AI, Bran has given orcs a proper early game build order. So their AI should be a bit more competent now in their early game, because before they used to kind of spam grots and that would be it for the first like 3 minutes of the game. So now hopefully it should be a bit better. Let's start our bigger game with a few factions because we need quite a few. So there's been a few changes. So, whilst we're setting that up, I'll just talk about the first changes that I see here, which is the Dark Eldar ones. Basic idea is that let me find a good map. Access of share. Yeah, let's go with this one. Okay, I have a game up. I'll put a bunch of computers in so that we can show off different factions. We want Dark Eldar. We want IDH. We want Imperial Guard.
Well, I mean, nothing from Imperial Guard is interesting. It's just some updated descriptions and.
Oh, sorry, that's just models. Well, we'll see if we have enough factions. Orcs is nothing. Yeah, Orcs is nothing interesting, so there's no need for that.
Looks like Necrons has got quite a lot of stuff.
Yes, Necrons received quite a few changes.
Sister Battle is a big change.
And then Space Marines also got a few changes.
Cool, yeah. And then Tau again is just breaches.
Yeah, that's just a model resize, so there's no point for that. Okay, cool. Yeah, I have a game up. So, Dark Eldar. So, first thing, the easier thing is grenades for Dark Eldar were quite wimpy. They didn't do all that much. So, that has been reworked. So, well, they haven't been reworked so far as they've just been buffed a bit so that they're more impactful. Specifically, the grenade that demoraled enemies, because it also did reduce your accuracy, but it was quite insignificant. So it was like it didn't actually feel that impactful. Now it significantly reduces your accuracy for 8 seconds. So that should be good. Maybe too good. We'll have to see how people do with it. So then the Soul Cage, that was changed as well. What faction should I be? Oh, you're picking IDH. Sure. I'll put Eldar in there and I'll go Tau as well. Okay. So the other thing is that I was looking at the Soul Cage and I didn't like how cheap it was to just spam out, considering that it gave you not just souls, but it also gave you requisition.
Yeah, and that's not actually something I ever actually knew. I don't know if it was in the description.
Yeah.
But why do I
So
have a horrible
now,
feeling that I'm still on the transferring badges?
oh, I'm also still. Let's wait for a minute whilst I talk about this. If it's still the case, we'll have to restart the game. Hooray for old games. Sometimes they just refuse to work.
To be fair,
Anyway.
I'm wondering if Down Online is having issues because it's been down for a few days. And
Yes, it has been having some issues, so we'll have to see. Worst comes to worst, you can just start a skirmish game and I can talk over whilst you show it off. So might be honestly be a better option at this point. Because we're doing individual factions, so Soul Cage now scales similarly to how the Imperial Guard or for other factions how their economy building scale, which is I've massively increased its production, how much they actually produce, but they also cost increasingly poor power the more of them you build.
yeah, so kind of the standard.
So, yeah, basically standard for a lot of factions which have an economy building. Hopefully,
should we
this
cancel
should...
out of this and get
Yes, yes. You should probably do a skirmish game because I don't think we will benefit much from showing things off together. So I'll just talk over it whilst you show it off. Sounds
cool.
Good? Yeah.
I don't think we've got any stream
Obviously.
lag, so you can probably just watch the stream.
Yeah. So obviously, Pathfinders are named to Star Striders. This was just, I don't think there's much to say there.
Yeah, it's just because those are Tau Pathfinders.
Yeah.
So it's just a good idea. Whoa.
Good idea to keep names unique.
But yeah, the notification sound is rather loud. What map were we using?
Oasis of Shar.
Ah, cool. Right, what races do we need? We need IDH.
IDH. You need Necrons. You don't need Orcs. You need Sisters, and you need Space Marines.
Oh, fucking hell, now OBS is disconnected. What the hell is going on?
Yeah, the stream seems to have lagged.
Right, that should have restarted. Pain in the bloody arse. Right, so Eldar, Inquisition, Sisters, Necrons. Do we need anyone else? I get the feeling that call's not even working.
I don't think you're online on stream now.
Yeah, it just disconnected again. Just checking my internet speed. Ah, right. Let's have a look. Yeah, my internet speed upload is insane. Although the ping is not great. Oh, no, sorry, that's not ping, that's download. No, my internet's fine. Fuck knows. Oh well. I'm assuming most people are going to see this on the YouTube anyway. So.
Okay, if the recording is still going, that's fine.
Ugh, pain in the
Then
ass.
we can just, that's fine. We'll just continue like this, and then we can obviously just be like, hey, stream didn't want to work, so here's a video instead. Could do a timestamp for when the stream actually shut off. Okay, so
right, races so far: Necrons,
Changes.
Sisters, IDH, Eldar. Who else do we need?
You don't need Eldar. Space Marines.
Space Marines.
That's it.
Cool. Dev mode is on. Let's have a look-see then.
Oh, stream restarted.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, sorry about that, guys. OBS is having some trouble. I don't know. Yeah. It's just being a pain in the ass. So, shall you talk through the IDH changes?
Yeah, so I believe this is probably the biggest, because this is actually pretty much a mini rework. So I did this, but this was actually your idea in the first place. Let me get over to them. So your feedback was that they're a bit complex, a bit overly complicated for new players. There's a lot of units that were built out of 2 buildings. There was a lot of units that one research unlocks multiple units. There's there's a lot of researches, so I've not had time to do the researches, but I will probably do that for the next patch, just move some around, see if any can be combined. But yeah, so the big thing is if we start looking at, well, even in the HQ, no more schematics. You know, as soon as units are available, you can build them. No need to do the research like Eldar. I don't think either of the sort it was particularly necessary to be requiring units to need the researches.
Yeah, it's a mechanic that makes sense for Eldar because their buildings can move around and all of that, but I feel like for IDH it wasn't particularly necessary. You could make an argument for it, but
Yeah. I was happy to get rid.
things clear, especially because there were situations where having one add-on research actually unlocked multiple units. So you would click on this suddenly pop up, and it's like, whoa, what the hell happened?
Yes, that was the case for dreadnoughts, for oh, disconnected again. That was the same for servitors as well. The land raiders. Yeah, so happy that that's gone. You will also see that the Grey Knight's teleporter is available at tier 1. Sounds like a buff, actually isn't. Main reason being that if we look in the Astra Telepathica, you can no longer build the Grey Knight strike team. It felt nicer to just have the Grey Knight's teleporter for just the Grey Knight units. So the Grey Knight teleporter is available from tier 1, but you cannot obviously build the units that were available in tier 2 until tier 2. And then all the dreadnoughts are gone, and they are now just in the Astra Telepathica. So every unit is just available in one building, and nothing has really changed apart from stormtroopers, but we'll go through them in a second. Nothing has really changed in terms of when you can build it. The only thing is, potentially you could argue that when you do get into tier 2, that you can immediately start building the tier 2 Grey Knights, which is a fair point, but we have compensated for that by making the tier 2 research take a lot longer. In fact, it was already way too quick, so it's been nerfed and then nerfed again to somewhat compensate for not having to build the Grey Knight teleporter when you hit tier 2. So yeah, a few other changes. So the big one is now that if you look in the watch, there is no stormtroopers. Stormtroopers are a dedicated tier 1 unit now from the Astra Telepathica. They've had their price increased, the damage increased, the health increased, but they are now a specific tier 1 unit. So it should be a lot nicer for the power curve because you've got Scions in tier 2, Stormtroopers in tier 1, and then in tier 0 you have the Scholars, Grenadiers, and the capping unit of the Acolytes. And the Acolytes have now been kind of more like the Space Marine Scouts. They now can get the grenades and the medkits, so they scale a bit better. I think most people will find themselves not relying on Acolytes because they take a lot of money to make them good. You've got to get the leader upgrades to get their special weapons. I think people will...
But it is an option.
Yeah, I think between Acolytes and...
I've seen Wagger.
Well, wrecking with the Acolytes, or...
No. I've seen Wagger go like mass Space Marine Scout, and it is pretty hilarious. So it is still an option if you want to do it.
Yeah, I get a feeling that it will be
and I think it is
quite
better.
strong, but quite a commitment. I think the IDH is a bit more of a commitment because you need more researchers to make it viable. But yeah, I think a nicer scaling, having a tier 1 unit, ranged damage should help scaling. Well, at that point of the game. And that should be mostly it for Inquisition.
Okay. Shall we move on to Necrons then?
Let's have a quick look. Yeah.
In terms of units, all of the infantry changes you don't need to show them off. There's nothing really to show off. So if you
Cool.
could get up to tier 3 and get the mobile obelisk, that's the actually mobile obelisk and Doomsday Arc. Those are the two units that I really want to show off.
Cool.
So infantry changes. You can see the full details in the changelog. The basic idea is that a lot of their infantry, just the researches for them were simply too strong. So the researches were nerfed a bit, especially the early game ones, because basically what happened is that all of the researches gave them about the same buff, when normally researches start with a smaller buff and scale up. So like the tier 1 research is 10%, let's say, tier 2 is 15%, and tier 3 is 20%. I've basically implemented that for them, but to compensate, some of the units got more survivability specifically, because I felt like in general Necron units were a bit too squishy, but also a bit too high damage. So I think this works out nicely to where their researchers give them less damage and less health, but they are more healthy in the first place, so the health evens out, whilst it works out to be a bit of a nerf in damage. Hell, you might even get more health in the end. I haven't done the exact maths for all of them.
What was the
So that's the
units
basic
you
idea.
wanted? Got the mobile obelisk. Was it Ghost Arc?
Mobile Obelisk and the Doomsday Arc.
Doomsday Arc.
So, one of specific note is the death marks. Death marks have always been weird because of their knockback. So, because they are a sniper unit, which is anti-infantry and anti-commander, and they had a ridiculously strong knockback to where 2 squads of them could basically stun lock a commander to death, even if they were just tickling him.
I think.
So they have had death marks have had a pretty big buff in their weapon damage, especially versus commander. Their weapon damage from upgrades has been nerfed, as I mentioned before, and their weapon knockback was reduced because it was just too strong. So now they will sometimes knock back, but they shouldn't chain knockback over and over.
I think I've noticed something that's probably not good. So
Oh.
most races can get the 2 relic upgrades in their HQ for. You don't need the relic usually to get that, do you? Or do you need the relic to get those upgrades? I don't think
You need the relic to get those.
Oh, okay.
Though that is the one thing that I still kept the relic requirement for, which is the relic upgrades. So all of
Cool.
those should still have the relic requirement, because
Cool. In
it
that
makes
case, I've just
sense.
got to get the relic first before I can actually build it. That's fine. I don't think you've actually talked about that. The relic requirement changes.
I did at the start. I just mentioned that a lot of the stuff got removed because there's no need for it anymore, because
Cool.
there's other ways to prevent turtling now. So there's no need for a bunch of stuff that doesn't make sense for it to have relic requirement for it to have. So
Sweet.
yeah, it's pretty self-explanatory, at least for me. Oh yeah, actually, Iscalia, if you could click on one of your scarabs, you see the ability button just above their health. Sorry, above them. If you could click that for me.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Well, that one's now a goner.
Again, we'll get an icon for it later, but yes, there is a big boom. Basically, Necrons have had a notoriously bad early game for the longest time, and this is my attempt to try to mitigate that, especially versus swarms. They don't have grenades, so they had no way of dealing with swarms other than upgrading their listening posts, which is quite unreliable, and amplification generator self-destruct, but that is also very unreliable. So this is my way of hopefully helping them, which is that you have a scarab blow up. It's on a global cooldown so that you can't abuse it, because scarabs are free. It costs a bit of money. It's a significant amount for the early game, but obviously later in the game it becomes somewhat insignificant, and that is where it having a global cooldown comes in, so that you can't spam it.
I
You can
assume
also still.
I assume this doesn't scale with the number of units
No,
in the.
it just explodes one of the models the way the bomb squig does. basically the same thing as the bomb squeak does. It explodes one of the bottles, and the others can continue doing their
so
thing.
if you had two in the squad and you do the
Only one
self-destruct,
of would explode.
so the rest are still working. Cool.
Yeah.
That's I think I like that because obviously you're losing 50 power, which in the
Yeah.
time of the game where you're going to be using this is a significant amount. So to keep being able to build,
And you are
That's
still
good.
using a builder, and these builders take ages to reinforce, especially in the early game. So losing even one model in a squad is not insignificant. Also, just as a spicy little thing, you can still use it even when you are burrowed. So if you click the burrow button,
Yep.
yeah. So if you click the burrow button, they become burrowed, and they become invisible unless you get close to them. But you can still explode them, so they will pop out of the ground and then explode.
Nice.
Just a nice little thing. It's something extra for good Necron players to do if they have too much APM and nothing to do it with, where they can burrow them and do like Baneling. If you've ever seen StarCraft, Baneling, basically like Baneling burrow ambushes, that was the idea. Anyway, so mobile obelisk. It hasn't served a purpose. Like it didn't have a nice purpose, so I gave it one. If you check its range, it is now a it is now an artillery range. It is a big range.
People have been moaning for a long time about, or at least pointing out that Necrons are a bit low on range. Obviously, you've got some of
Yes.
the Gorse pylons and stuff,
Yes. But yes, now it has a big range.
do you
And
know
by
what
default,
value it is?
I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's about the same as some artillery, basically, as a lot of other artillery, something like the same range as the Whirlwind or something. I
Cool.
can't remember what exactly I based it off, but it's about the range of other artillery.
Nice.
So yeah, by default, it's your anti-infantry, anti-demon, and then if you get the upgrade, it turns into an anti-vehicle, anti-titan, if I remember correctly. Oh, sorry, anti-infantry, anti-vehicle, anti-aircraft. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, it turns into, well, it becomes, yeah, it's specifically meant to be good versus vehicles and titans because that's what you're going to be dealing with, but it's obviously still decent damage versus everything else, so it just has a effective versus all thing.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So pay a chunk of money and
Yeah. If the description is unclear, we can always change it, but that's the basic idea.
to
So
be
yeah,
fair, I think the
that is
description's
now
fine.
its purpose because it comes in at an awkward time, and when it comes in, there's better modelettes, so now there's a reason to use it. So if you could also get the Doomsday Arc.
Doomsday Monolith?
Doomsday Arc in
Sure.
the HQ.
I like to think that I did know that. I'm just being sleepy.
So this is now, as you see in its description, the anti-vehicle, anti-titan, anti-superstructure building. But I've shortened its range. It was kind of like semi-artillery before, where it had a okay range, but it didn't have that big of range. Now its range has been changed to where if you see the inner circle, that's the attack for its main gun, where it's quite short, but within that, if you are able to get close, it should absolutely shred vehicles and titans and all of that. So, and its health has been significantly buffed. Like God, what was its health before? Oh, I don't have it written down exactly, but it was like maybe 3,000 health or something before, so more than double its health.
Cool. So
And
it's
it has a
almost like a
jump.
brawler now then. An anti
Yes,
late
it
game
is
brawler.
now your frontline vehicle, basically, where you run it in, you jump it in, and you try to target key targets as it soaks the damage. So that's the idea.
Cool.
Obviously, first implementation, so there may be some adjustments that need to be made. We'll see.
Cool.
But that's the basic idea.
Yeah. So it starts off at
those 2
8k
units
and goes to 10,000 or 10,500.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's cool. That is.
Yeah. So yeah, 2 units that didn't really have a purpose now should hopefully have a purpose. And if they still don't, I think those are 2 aspects that Necrons are really lacking in. So if these units don't fill those role in properly even now, all it means is that they just need to be buffed.
Yeah.
So from now on, it should be just a simple adjusting the numbers kind of thing.
Sweet.
Okay, shall we move on to Sisters then? I'll quickly go over the Orcs whilst you're teching up with Sisters.
Yeah.
So Orcs, fairly simple. The big shootout, I decided it was still too low in terms of the Orc pop that you needed to get it. So now it's just a bit higher. I think I swapped it from like 40 to 50 or something. And Tank Busters, we're just doing way too much damage versus non-tank things, which felt weird. So now their general damage has been lowered a bit. Their pens versus things that aren't vehicles have been lowered a bit. But their pens versus vehicles have been significantly buffed. So they should still be nearly as good versus vehicles, but less damage to everything else.
Which was always their intended purpose.
Yes.
Just, tank busters, kind of in the name. I think that they've been an issue for a long time, to be honest. I don't think they ever quite hit the balance that was wanted. So
Hesk, I'm not sure if the monolith is out of line of sight. I think it should be, maybe, because of how like the Necron weapons work in general. But I'm not 100% on that. If you need line of sight or if you don't. Even if you do, it has a teleport. You have an artillery with a teleport. You should be okay.
yeah,
But yeah, that's something we can change later.
yeah. I mean,
So,
not
going on
every artillery has to be non-line of sight.
out of line of sight. Yeah.
Especially because it's Necrons. They do particle weapons. They don't do
Yes.
lobbing stuff anyway. So I think if anything, that's how it should be.
Yeah.
Sisters of
But
Battle.
again, I'm not sure the way it is. Yeah. So Sisters of Battle. First of all, Knights Hilaria. It didn't have a valid armor type before, making it hilariously strong.
Wait,
Like,
what was it?
oh god, I can't remember, but it was some armor type that the game didn't even recognize, so it was just showing blank where its armor
I
type should be.
probably had a I probably worked from an RGD from another sent over by Keck. Didn't notice that bit. I will keep an eye on that in future. Whoopsie, my bad.
So now it has the proper Titan armor type. It should still be very good. It's just no longer unkillable. So, Shrine of the Living Saint. That's just a new model. If you want to show that off.
Yeah. So new icon to go with it. But look at that. Very nice.
Yeah, that is very pretty. Okay, so
love the flowers.
Yeah. So then onto the other major thing is that Sisters are also getting an economy building because with the changes to their late game infantry, it is now very, very requisition heavy. So that
Yeah.
if you're reinforcing your tier 3 infantry, you just run out of requisition extremely quickly.
Yeah, I mean this is
It was a problem with Sisters before, but before the units were so unkillable that it didn't matter. Now that they're not unkillable, it matters and it's a problem. So they're
Sisters
getting
were a bit of a
economy
mess late
building.
game because they didn't have really Titans, they didn't have late game tanks. So they were just infantry, which were then unkillable, so you didn't have to buy too many of them, which meant they could kind of get away with having basically a non-existent late game economy. Obviously, they've got the Faith Blade, they've got various Titans, the Solaria, the Imperator. So they kind of have a varied late game now. But yeah, they don't have the money to afford it.
You might need to get some faith upgrades and some more Shrines of the Living Saint.
Yeah, that is true.
Because you need,
as
as you may notice, the Shrine, what's now called the Shrine of Prayer, costs some faith. Reason being, in Tier 3, if you're playing Sisters properly, you should definitely have plenty of faith stored up. So it's just a matter of getting that faith, like a use for that faith, which you didn't have much of a use until you get tier 4 and you get your Archangel and spamming the ability on the Archangel. So this is a use for faith, and it's a bit of a drain on it.
Yeah.
The faith cost doesn't scale, but the power cost, as with other buildings, does scale, and it produces a standard 15 plus 15 rec, the same as basically the other buildings. It is tier 3, and yeah, basically just a requisition building in line with all the other factions.
Yeah, just need a minute. Now that they're building all of the troopers.
If you build more Shrines of the Living Saint, they gave you faith.
Do they?
Yeah. That's how I usually test sisters. I just spam Shrines of the Living Saint all over the place.
Yeah. Well, usually I remember to build the infantry at the start so that they're.
There we go. Now it's ticking up.
Da-di-da-di-da. Okay. I was testing all this yesterday, and I swear I didn't have to wait, so I didn't bother taking LPs.
Maybe your squads have to die. I thought the sister squads had to die for you to get faith from them.
No. Any faithful unit just makes faith as they're alive, so you know they don't have to die at all. Of course, when you get that upgrade, Martyr's Gift, that just increases, just makes gives you more faith when they do die. But no, the primary faith income is just having units alive, boosted by the researches and boosted by the strategic points.
Yeah. Okay. Well, whilst we're waiting for that, so Space Marines, there was a bug on the main menu to where, wait, basically, if you play a faction, a unit from that faction will show up on the main menu, and if you got the Terminator with Chain Fist, there was just constant revving. So that was removed. All Out War for Chapter Master buffed. Basically, it was kind of like a mini nuke, but it was very wimpy. So now it's just stronger. There's not much to say there. It's just stronger. I've increased the damage. I've increased its spans versus stuff. It's just better.
Cool.
And then when we were doing our commander rework, somehow the add-on for the Force Commander and Terminator armor that allows him to teleport got lost in all of that. So
Well, he had
now has it
two,
back.
so I thought one of them got removed. Must have had both removed or something.
Yeah, we must have removed both because he didn't have it and he didn't have a way of getting it, so I just fixed that.
Cool. All right, so we have the faith now. So back to Sister Battle. Shrine of Prayer. Little baby statue. Okay.
Oh, there you go. That is that. And I think that's about it. The one thing left to talk about is the campaign. So I'll quickly rapid fire through the campaign changes because there's a lot, and I could spend like half an hour talking about all of them and the reasoning behind that, but we don't have the time and I don't want to bore you. So for the campaign, Honor Guard have all been reworked. The one caveat being that for a lot of them, I haven't had a look at their weapons yet. So their damage might be a bit out of whack. Like, for example, I know that the Space Marine one, the damage is definitely out of whack because of the changes I made to it. Because before, you had multiple models in the Honor Guard. Now I made him have basically be one model, the Tactical Marine, but he's incredibly tanky. But his damage doesn't compensate for that because his damage is still very low. So, weapon damage for Honor Guard will definitely is definitely something that I'll need to still have a look at. Their positioning on the main map has also been reworked, and there were a few provinces, like what's it called, 5 strength provinces, that gave you just an increased requisition. That has been changed to give you elite units, where the powerful units, such as the vehicles of a faction or like the very powerful units or heroes, are now instead of those provinces. And the requisition income from provinces have been changed. So now the Warp Gate provinces, the ones with before which were taken hold, and which are now actually using the victory point win condition, those are now your main source of requisition, where other provinces give you like plus 25, plus 35, and those give you plus 75. So there's actually a reason to capture them other than going on other planets.
Cool.
So yeah, rewards from provinces.
So I think one of
provinces.
the boring things, one of the main things, is all of the just the units in the campaign in general, ignoring the honor guard. They are now drawing from just the standard Crucible units. So balance from just the Crucible. Yeah, that should all this should be campaign using Crucible rather than some weird clusterfuck mix between vanilla Soulstorm and the mod. So
Yeah.
you
With the
know,
caveat of certain strongholds, where enemy units in strongholds, some might still spawn units that are basically dedicated units for the campaign, which I didn't yet hunt them all down and change all of their spawners to standard Crucible units.
but
But
it
that's the
is
only
in the
thing. All of
pipeline.
the player
Is,
units should be.
is that
Yeah,
something you are planning on sorting?
yes. When I'm going through individual strongholds, I will sort all of that out.
So it is worth mentioning that this is very much. Well, I say work in progress. This this is
It's a
already
beta.
yeah, it's a beta. It is quite far through the process. This is not just throwing something out early, but it is a work in progress. There's a lot more that we can do. And there's a lot more that will be done. Just
Yes.
it is probably one of the biggest things that people ask. Is their campaign back? So delighted to
There we go.
say.
Now there is.
I think
So,
the top two things we always get asked is campaign back and can we get some Krieg? They are both in Crucible
Yes.
now. Really, really happy to say.
Yeah. So Garrison and Deep Strike, just the cost of how much they cost to Garrison, how much units cost to Garrison, and how much they cost to Deep Strike has been just balanced for all factions. Standard stuff. War gear have been changed to the war gear rewards specifically. Before, you had 3 rewards for 1 defensive battle, 3 defensive battles, and 5 defensive battles. I always found that super awkward, to where the AI simply wouldn't attack me 5 times if I were to go through the campaign naturally. So that has been altered to there's only 1 reward now for 3 defensive battles, and the other 2 rewards have been swapped to conquer rewards, where I think it's like if you conquer 5 provinces and if you conquer like 10 or something. Basically, there were for 1 conquest and for 15 conquest rewards, and those 2 were added to somewhere in between there. So strongholds, this is the main work in progress. So depending on which difficulty you select on the campaign map, the stronghold, the initial attack wave on the stronghold will be stronger. But so far, that is really the only difference, except for a thing I did with Necrons, which I won't spoil. I'll let you guys figure that out for yourself. Other than that, strongholds are the main thing that still needs work. Everything else is more or less finished, and it will just need some tweaking. Strongholds still need a lot of work, and I'll be working through them in the following months. So,
Yeah.
speaking of difficulty, before the campaign used to massively increase your health, where on easy it was like 3 times, on medium it was 2.5 times, and on hard it was like 2 times or something. It was something ridiculous along those lines. It has now been changed to 10% increased health on medium and 20% increased health on easy, if I remember correctly. And hard has the health unchanged. Reason being is now the campaign difficulty scales with AI difficulty. So if you go into a skirmish match, you can select from 5 AI difficulties: easy, normal, hard, harder, brutal. Insane. Which AIs you face in skirmish matches now depends on your campaign difficulty. So if you're playing on easy, you will face easy and normal AI. If you're playing on medium, you will face normal and hard. If you're playing on hard, you will face hard and harder. There's been more changes to do with difficulty. So there is a significant difference between the 3 difficulties, but I won't go through all of them. Let's just say that I've had a friend of mine, Cario, test the campaign, and specifically the Space Marine start on hard difficulty is insanely difficult. Like, it is not for the faint of heart.
Yeah, I've heard
So,
of
be
good players
warned.
finding it virtually impossible. Well, not virtually impossible, but yeah, a significant.
Definitely difficult. So be warned, hard difficulty is hard. You're not going to have an easy time. If you want an easy time, easy is no longer the joke difficulty. It is actually a reasonable difficulty. So just play on easy or normal.
Yeah, but that's how it should be.
Another spicy little thing. You may notice that sometimes AIs will attack strongholds, both your stronghold and each other's strongholds. So that is a thing now. They can do that now. And you can actually lose the game now because they can now attack your stronghold, and if you lose that, you obviously lose. So yeah.
I'm actually really looking forward to playing this myself. I've not had time to join the testers in having a go with it, so I've not touched it yet. I'm really looking forward to it. I don't think I've played Soulstorm campaign for 10 years, so something like that.
Wow.
I think I played Soulstorm. What's that? 2008, 18? Yeah, I probably played Soulstorm roughly when it came out, so maybe it's even something more like 14 years. And I've always been more on the competitive side of things, so mostly playing skirmish and and enjoying that. So yeah, I think it's my first.
To kind of summarize the campaign, it has all been reworked except for strongholds. Everything except for strongholds should be working, with a few honor guards maybe needing a bit of tweaking, but everything else should work. It's just strongholds that are still being a pain in the ass because strongholds.
Yes, and the code not being maybe what we'd have liked it to have been to make modding easy. I know you spent quite a long time trying to sort some issues.
Yeah, the code is just a mess. Well, anyway, I think that's it for the patch. I'm gonna have to go soon, so if you want to continue, feel free to, but I'll have to wrap things up on my end.
Cool. Well, I've only got a few things I want to say, but I will chat to you tomorrow when we no doubt get working on 2.03.
Yep.
No rest for the wicked. Yeah, cheers,
There is
Oleg.
no rest.
Glad
Yep,
we could
see
get this dev chat out on the day of the patch. So,
Yep.
see you later.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, so patch will be out in a couple of hours. I just need to get the change log into the files, get it all uploaded, get it all onto ModDB. This stream has not gone without a hitch. I think it's disconnected loads of times, but I think there's only been a few people watching the stream anyway. I'll get that on YouTube tonight. Probably have a bit of a ModDB article. Yeah, so hopefully get all that done tonight, and hopefully gets everyone playing on 2.02 and start getting people's feedback. So yeah, thank you very much, and see you all soon.